you very much, Ollie. Thank you very much for welcoming me. Now, before I get started, first of all, I'd like to see who we have in the audience. Now the bright light on me. Can I ask to put your hand up if you currently do or have run a company? Great. Now keep your hand up. Keep your hand up if your team is more than 5, more than 20, more than 50. Oh, yeah, right, good. A whole range then. Excellent, interesting. Well, wherever you are on your journey, or even if you consult with businesses, I hope that over the next 20 minutes there will be at least a couple of nuggets that you can take away and implement back into your business. Now, before it all stole my thunder. Now, in this country, we are great at starting businesses. In fact, last year we started 600,000 of them, and that's set to raise again this year. And apparently, we are one of the 5 easiest countries in the world to start a business. However, we aren't so good at scaling them. Apparently, almost half of businesses fail within their first 3 years, according to Biz, and we seriously lag behind the US and other leading economies into which our companies scale, deem the scale-up gap. Now, less than 4% of businesses hire more than 10 people, and less than 0.1% are more than 250. So the great news is some of you are here well away ahead of your peers, and congratulations. Now, there is obviously a key part that sole traders play in the economy, but why do some companies that want to then struggle to scale? Now, there are, of course, many macro factors in this: infrastructure challenges, funding, access to talent. Do we even mention the B word and what impact that could have? I'll let the next panel discuss that. But what I want to explore today is what those businesses can do at an individual level to impact on their business. Now, at the Supper Club, we have run over 2,000 roundtable events over the last 10 years as some of Britain's most successful entrepreneurs. Last year, the average turnover of our members was around 17 million, and their average growth was 34%. So really representative of what the government call the gazelles of the British economy. So we have seen how the best businesses scale. And what we tend to find is actually most of them face the same challenges, and they actually boil down into very similar issues: people, time, and money. Now, my belief is that one of these far outstrips the others in most cases. Now, out of the 30 events per month that we run that cover all topics about scaling business, nearly half the time, 41%, is spent talking about people and leadership-based issues. So I argue it doesn't matter how much time you've got, how much money you've raised, how innovative, disruptive, or game-changing your product is. If you then don't have the right people in the right roles performing at their best, then it just won't succeed. And it doesn't actually matter how successful you've been up to this point. And if you are the CEO or entrepreneur, it is your responsibility to make sure that this happens. So what I want to do is share some of the key insights we've gleaned over the past 10 years at the Supper Club on how the best step back and scale a high-performing team. So, to start, why do we even need to step back? Now, even if you're not looking to exit, you should always be looking to build capital value in your business and make yourself redundant. Why? Well, if you got sick or, heaven forbid, got hit by a bus, sorry, a little morbid for this time in the morning, but if you did, you need to know that your business can run without you, to protect the people in your business and to give your family options if they want to run it or sell it in your absence. And if you do want to exit, then the buyers will want to know that the company is not reliant on you to run it, especially important if you don't want a long earn-out. One of our members has actually asked to print out the previous 3 years of his calendar just to prove that he wasn't needed in the business, and they actually use that to chip at the valuation. So very important. So in summary, step back so you can de-risk. So how do the best do that? Well, first step I want to do is look at who you are. Now, this is a bit of fun, but I want to explore how you behave as a leader. Now, over the years, we've identified that successful entrepreneurs come from all walks of life, but there are a few key characters that emerge. Now, I want to share just a few of them today, and I hope that you may be able to relate to at least one, maybe two of them. So first up, the Magpie. Perhaps the most famous type of entrepreneur may call themselves the serial entrepreneur. They love a shiny new object. They're always seeking out a new opportunity, and they're great at spotting these market opportunities, and they potentially move quite quickly from one business to the next. The brains, now they are maybe an inventor or really a great expert in what they do, or may have done an MBA, and they will use their scientific, technical, or business experience to find truly innovative solutions. Up next, the Pied Piper, Exhibit A, Ollie Barrett. This is a common personality type amongst many entrepreneurs, even looks a bit like an inspirational leader that has innate charisma, the ability to make their staff, customers, and investors follow them to the ends of the earth. And then there are those that refuse to follow the rule book entirely. Those are the stories that outlast all others, the dreamers that change the course of history, the disruptors. They thrive on solving problems that their consumers didn't even know they had. So I hope you may have been able to identify with at least one of those, and each has its own strengths, of course. But beware, these strengths can actually potentially hinder your progress. For example, Magpie's love of new shiny new objects can actually lead to a lack of focus, and for the team it can be an absolute roller coaster ride and quite hard to keep up. So you can end up doing lots of things but not very well, and actually demotivate the team as you do it. The brains are likely to be perfectionists, so the idea of a minimal viable product may be a challenge for them, and that keen eye for detail can actually slow progress down and affect team morale. The Pied Pipers tend to be the hero salesmen, so they really struggle to scale a successful sales team behind them. Don't know if Ollie's had that challenge. And as for disruptors, not everyone may understand or buy into their vision. They sometimes prefer talking about their crazy new ideas and actually taking part in business discussions. So in all cases, you will need to have a strong number 2 or senior management team to manage the idea flow, keep momentum, and to build the processes and team behind them. So first and foremost, understand yourself and what makes you tick, and then you can start to think about what kind of company and culture you want to create for your people. So we know that, and seeing that the businesses with a clear mission and culture are more likely to succeed to scale. So start with the end in mind. And if you are one of those that are sat here already well in your way, it's always good to reassess regularly. Look at what your business needs to be and do to be a success moving forward. And it's ever important in this ever-changing world. Now we've used the analogy of building a house in the club. No one starts building a house just by laying one brick on top of the other. You start with a dream in your mind, you draw up a plan, you get the build team, and off you go. Now, it probably won't be smooth sailing. It may cost you more, take longer, and people may let you down. But you stay on course, and those problems are lessened if you have the right plan. So start with a pause and ask yourself some questions. Why have I embarked on this crazy journey? What am I trying to achieve as a business and personally? And how am I then going to deliver that moving forward? What type of environment do I want to do it in? And what type of people do I want and need with me along the way? Then write it all down and communicate it. The workforce of today are different to 20 years ago, and they want to feel part of something and have the shared purpose, so you need to sell that dream. Now, there was a recent Deloitte millennial survey, and they found that millennials believe that the purpose of a business must be more than just financial gain. Now, that may sound obvious, but there was then a real strong correlation between their motivation and the likelihood for them to staying in a business longer, tied into their belief in the business's purpose. So it's something that we need to keep in mind. Now, alongside your vision, we have seen that best businesses define their values with their early team and then hire and fire by them. These are ours. We've had members say it's been transformational in how they recruit and then manage performance of their team moving forward. But don't just put them up on the wall. Create a set of behaviours that demonstrate them and ensure you communicate and re-land them regularly. Now, we've seen all sorts of cultures in the club and ways of doing things, and it doesn't matter what it is, as long as you're clear what you are as a company and what type of culture you have, you'll then attract the right people. And as your role evolves and you become less involved with the day-to-day, it will become more important to communicate with the team more, not less. One of our members even described his role as culture guardian. Now, I'm going to just drop into a couple of examples where it potentially could go wrong. So who here has ever got really excited that they found the golden goose of talent, the potential elixir to their success? It's like, yeah, I've got them. Potentially someone who's come from a competitor, or maybe someone who's come from a much larger business who has great contacts and seems to know the industry. I've got a few nods of the heads. Yeah, been there. Well, beware. We've had several members bring in big ex-corporate execs, and they're hoping for big things, but time and time again, it just doesn't work. They may not be used to having marketing budgets on a shoestring, or they may be used to having a large sales team deliver rather than doing themselves. And if they're from a competitor, they may be used to be working a completely different way. Just because they've sold or built a similar product doesn't necessarily mean it's a right fit for you. Now, it's not to say that it doesn't work, but really ensuring the early conversations that they understand what to expect. It can save you a lot of time, pain, and money in the long run. Now, the other thing we hear regularly is business owners describing their businesses as like family, which is great when you start up and you're all in it together. Just make sure you're happy with that analogy when you want to scale. Netflix, interestingly, are really clear that they are a team and not a family. The team that got them to one point is probably not going to be the team that got them to the next, and they can bench anyone at any time, even the senior execs. Now, this may sound harsh, but that clarity makes it much easier to bring in new talents and skills at the right time. Where this language is used, members do find it easier to manage people out of the business. Just make sure you're happy with whatever analogy you have, because remember, in a family, it's really hard to sack your granddad, although I wouldn't put it past him to do that. So, step 3, how do we get them to perform? Now, performance of a person or a team is down to 3 key areas: skills, self-management and systems, and motivation. So let's start with skills. Have they got the skills to do the job? Now, many people get promoted into their level of incompetence. It's called the Peter Principle. This is especially prevalent in rapidly growing businesses. For instance, the best salesman doesn't make the best sales manager, and the FD that got you to 5 million is probably not going to be the one that gets you to 50. In earlier growth stage businesses, there is also a need to have a get on with it and wear many hats attitude. And this can lead to the entrepreneur relying on individuals, losing my voice, who don't have the experience. Beware that you may have to invest in training, as you may not have the time for them to learn on the job, even with the best will. And it may be more time and cost efficient to do this than trying to hire someone new in. However, if you do identify a skills gap in your team, you'll need to hire for expertise. But don't forget the values. We've already seen some of the clashes that can happen. And ensure that you know what you need. Do you actually need that big marketing director at this point? Or do you need a consultant or a part-time director to come in, set your strategy, and then get a cheaper doer to come in and implement it? And do you need a sales director that's going to come in, set the systems, recruit and build a sales team and train them? Or do you want someone who's going to come in and get hands-on and loves going out and selling full-time? They can have exactly the same title, but very different motivations. So really make sure that you know what you want. Now, what happens if you or your co-founder get promoted into your level of incompetence? At the beginning, I see this a lot. You may have been really good at something or really passionate about something, and suddenly you go, I'm at 20 people, all of a sudden you've got to manage them. Well, you have 2 options. Skill yourself up. Get a mentor, go get an MBA if that floats your boat, come join the supper club. Or, as I've already mentioned, take a pause, step back, and work out what it is that you want and where your strengths lie. Don't be afraid, if you are the brain or the creative, to step aside and have someone else take over the operations of the business. We only have to think of the likes of Michael Acton Smith or James Dyson to know that their talents are really useful elsewhere in the business, and they have others running the day-to-day. And then don't be afraid to step back altogether. We actually had one member in a dinner say, my business will never get much bigger with me at the helm because I'm not the right person to do that. I either need to accept that or move aside so someone else can take over. Now, if you do bring someone in, ensure their skills of working is complementary. We don't need 2 of you. You need to be challenged. And a really good definition I've heard in the club is a CEO's role is 3 months and out, and an MD or COO's role is 3 months and in. Whatever you do, whether you hire in or promote from within, ensure that you define your roles clearly and who is responsible for what. And then let it happen. We have seen far too many founders bringing in MDs to take over and then not let them make any decisions themselves. You know who you are. Right. Up next, systems. Now, the best businesses do not scale based on having the best product. Let's face it, McDonald's does not make the best burger in town. They scale based on having great business systems that run all the way through their business, from supply chain to marketing to finance and beyond, that they can then scale. Now, I want to share a story, and you may be able to relate to this. We had a member over a 3-year period. Every time I saw him, had either just hired a new sales director or just fired a new sales director. And after I heard about the demise of the last one, I asked, why didn't he work? And he said, well, he'd been with us for 3 months and he hadn't made any deals yet, right? Knowing that they sold complex IT solutions and he was normally the hero salesman, I said, well, how long does it normally take you? 6 months. Right, do you think it's a little unfair that you're expecting someone new to come in and do it in half the time? And his response was, well, he's been doing it for 30 years, so I expected him to be better than me. No one is better than you at selling your own business. And ensure that you know what makes a successful sale for you so that you can then transpose it into someone new coming in. Now, when I first arrived at Prelude, I asked our founder what our conversion rate was. And he says it's definitely around 8 out of 10. Well, when I actually put it into the CRM system, it was more like 60%. So relatively huge difference between perception and reality. So these systems can actually help you manage what success looks like. I now know all the conversion rates throughout our process: suspect to lead, lead to meeting, meeting to deal, length of cycle, average order value. So if anyone new joins, I have a blueprint and a test bed to compare against. And so no one is given a hospital pass, training needs are identified, and improvements can be tracked. And then this can be replicated across all the different departments. And once your systems are in place, ensure you have clear KPI and tracking systems, which are important if you want to step back successfully. A good question to ask yourself is, if you were sat on a beach and you only had 3 KPIs to test how successful your business is, what would those 3 KPIs be? Now, as well as the right systems, developing the right environment and behaviours that enable your team to focus on the job at hand is also your job. And I believe the sooner you can do regular performance reviews, the better. And that the key is that they need to be 2-way. So I use them for 2 main objectives. Firstly is to set targets and objectives, because if your team don't know what their key priorities are, they won't focus on them. And secondly, I also use them to have open conversations about how they're feeling and what they're thinking about their future. Where someone may want to be in a couple of years' time can help you perhaps sculpt their role ahead of time. Not only does it keep them motivated and bought in for longer, but it can also help you with future succession planning. Now, I don't believe there are many real bad apples. I think intrinsically most people want to do well. So if they aren't performing, but they have the skills and systems to do so, then they may not be well motivated. Now, personally, if you haven't heard of it, one of the most influential books I've read on this is Dan Pink's Drive. And if you're not a big reader, there is a great RSA animate on YouTube, which I highly recommend it. What Pink argues is that some of the specific roles that carrot and stick incentives of the last 20 years may still work, but they're not so relevant anymore. Money is now a poor motivator, although it can be a demotivator, so ensure that you are paying the people what they're worth, and then that's off the table. And then most people nowadays are driven by the idea of flow, purpose, being part of something bigger than yourself, which I've mentioned, mastery, becoming an expert in something and progressing, and autonomy, having ownership. Now, as you scale, obviously you can't understand what motivates every single person, but you do need to create the environment by reselling the purpose of the business, developing a culture where people can learn and progress, and then give them the environment that they can perform. And then encourage the management team to understand how motivations change for each of the individuals so they can keep track of them. Now, in some cases, people may be performing well, but they end up being a cultural mismatch, and they become culture terrorists. Need to confront them, and they need to sort it out, or they leave, because otherwise that could affect the rest of the team. Now, as we say in the club, it's better to have a hole than an a-hole. And for those that will still have a great attitude, didn't swear. And for those that still have a great attitude and are no longer up to the job or the business has outgrown them, you need to have a frank conversation with them. Work out whether they need support or could do another job in the company. And if not, then it may be time for them to leave. But leave on good terms and keep the door open for the future. And the tough part is now, if your business partner or you are now not right for the company, but you need to ensure that you are taking time to have these types of conversations regularly for the good of the business. So you can see that the performance of the team in all three areas is in your control. If they're not performing, it's your fault. So in summary, as the company grows and it evolves, your role will evolve with it. When you first start, you'll be right in it, delivering, selling, building, whatever you need to do to get off the ground. As you grow, you'll then need to become a manager, implementing the systems and processes that allow you to scale. And then you need to step back to become a leader, really defining where you're going and how you're going to do that. And as we've seen, sometimes make some tough decisions. So I urge you, when you're travelling home this evening or tomorrow, sat on the train or lost in thought, pause and think, who am I? What am I trying to achieve as a business and personally? And am I communicating that well enough? Do I have the right people and systems to allow that to happen? And am I helping them to perform at their best? Because the success of your business, it's down to you. Thank you.